In a world shaped by systems of cause and effect, some believe they can operate in secrecy without consequence. But the natural order doesn't work like that. Every action, whether rooted in goodwill or deception, creates a ripple. And when that ripple returns, it rarely misses its intended target. Today, we examine a timeless principle, the universal law of balance. From ancient philosophies to modern psychological insights, there's growing recognition that intentions, energy, and behavior echo back, amplified. For the chosen ones, this means navigating a world where adversity is constant, but justice is inevitable. Let's begin. When individuals sow hardship for others, whether through manipulation, gossip, or calculated exclusion, they often believe they're operating from a position of control. But control doesn't equate to immunity. Every thorn scattered eventually becomes part of a larger system of consequences. This is not superstition. It's alignment. Just as nature seeks balance. Correcting imbalances in ecosystems or weather patterns, human interactions follow a similar rhythm. If you've been the target of unseen sabotage or silent opposition, understand this: the same effort used to undermine you often returns to the originator in unexpected forms. Those who attempt to elevate themselves by undermining others will eventually find that the tools they used, be it silence, deceit, or strategic delay, will be turned inward. That's the gravity of balance at work. The term chosen one isn't mystical, it's definitional. Chosen individuals are those who refuse to bend under external pressure. They may not be loud or visible, but their resilience creates a visible disruption. Unlike others, they don't seek revenge or perform for attention. Instead, they endure storms quietly, process challenges internally, and let time speak for them. The result? A type of strength that unsettles those who relied on superficial power. Their energy alone, especially when it's still and focused, disrupts environments designed to control. While others react to chaos, chosen ones recalibrate. That inner alignment is more effective than any outward retaliation. In today's hypervisible world, where reaction is often mistaken for relevance, silence is frequently misunderstood. But silence can be precise. It isn't always about retreat, it's often about positioning. For chosen individuals, staying silent doesn't indicate defeat, it reveals mastery. When targeted by manipulation, accusation, or jealousy, they don't counter with noise. They pause. And in that stillness, an invisible shift takes place. The universe, or more plainly, the natural law of equilibrium, starts redirecting energy. And those who once thought they had control find themselves ensnared in the very traps they set. In many cases, what they thought was a clever plan becomes their own undoing. It's important to distinguish between perceived power and actual influence. Many of the loudest voices in society confuse attention for impact. But being seen doesn't always translate to being aligned. The chosen ones aren't concerned with optics. They understand that real power is subtle, often unseen, and consistently misunderstood. It's the ability to remain composed when everything around you is engineered to provoke chaos. It's being unmoved in the presence of pressure. That's where true authority resides. And when those operating from ego confront that type of calm, they falter. Because ego relies on response, on validation. The chosen provide neither. They simply endure, and evolve. There's a certain irony in watching those who plotted against you now stand center stage, only this time, they're not applauded, but exposed. The same individuals who maneuvered in secrecy now find their actions catching up to them. Their networks unravel, their image decays, and their public credibility is questioned. This isn't a coincidence, it's a systemic correction. And the chosen ones? They don't need to retaliate. Their only responsibility is to remain in alignment with who they are. Because their growth, their presence, their unshaken focus, it becomes the evidence. It's proof that the justice system, both human and spiritual, eventually catches up. In professional and personal circles alike, there's an increasing trend of subtle character assassinations. passive-aggressive behavior, strategic misinformation, intentional exclusion. But here's what's missed: attempting to erase someone rarely ends the way it's intended. The chosen ones aren't destroyed by such tactics, they're refined by them. For every stone thrown, they build clarity. For every lie spread, their path becomes clearer. The more they're excluded, the more their presence becomes disruptive. This reversal of momentum is part of the universal symmetry. Attempts to silence become platforms for resilience. Attempts to erase become documentation of survival. And in the end, those who initiated harm are left facing the very emptiness they projected. There's power in not reacting. When injustice is real, the natural instinct is to strike back. But chosen individuals understand that retaliation often weakens their position. It removes focus from elevation and shifts it to external conflict. And so, instead of chasing justice, they embody it. Their path is shaped by strategic non-engagement, trusting that energy invested in growth returns in exponential ways. And it always does. Eventually, those who mocked or harmed are confronted, not by the chosen one's hands, but by consequence. This happens silently, often without spectacle, and always with precision. The most unsettling thing for an adversary is not your anger, it's your calm. Stillness triggers panic. It's misread as retreat, but in reality, it's preparation. It means you're observing, not participating. And when chosen ones step back, it signals the start of an invisible shift. It's in that moment that power begins to change hands. Their confidence begins to fracture. Their alliances weaken. Their control unravels. All because the person they targeted didn't respond. Didn't panic. Didn't play the role they had scripted. That refusal to perform is what starts the collapse. One of the greatest weapons the chosen carry is character. It's not about being flawless, it's about being grounded. Those who attempt to build influence on manipulation eventually run into a wall: authenticity. And when that happens, everything built without foundation begins to fall. The chosen don't need to announce their truth. Their stability speaks for itself. While others scramble to manage perception, they remain consistent. Their energy doesn't shift to match surroundings, it leads it. And in a world hungry for consistency, that's disruptive. While public justice often plays out in courtrooms and legal systems, spiritual justice happens more subtly. Regret. Isolation. Repetition of failure. Many of those who try to control, manipulate, or harm eventually find themselves caged, not by law, but by their own unresolved behavior. They walk freely, yet feel imprisoned. Their reputation fades. Their influence weakens. Their peace erodes. Because the bars they built for others become their own boundaries. This internal prison, crafted from guilt, paranoia, and collapse, is often more punishing than any sentence. What we've explored in this first segment is the pattern that emerges when chosen individuals are targeted. Through restraint, clarity, and spiritual alignment, they rise, not in resistance, but in power. And while others operate through control, the chosen dismantle those systems by simply refusing to participate. Chosen individuals don't engage in battles the traditional way. They don't argue, retaliate, or try to prove their worth. Instead, they rely on alignment, a form of spiritual discipline that rewrites outcomes silently. This second part continues by examining how the universe ensures justice, even when it appears delayed, and how the rise of the chosen sends a message no accusation can silence. Many of those who once moved with unchecked confidence, mocking, manipulating, and performing for power, did so with borrowed energy. Their confidence wasn't real. It was sustained by the silence of those they targeted, by the systems that allowed deception to thrive. But like borrowed currency, it comes due. The chosen don't seek to dismantle these illusions by force. They simply stand still long enough for truth to arrive. And truth always does. When those built on falsehoods are confronted with reality, their borrowed confidence collapses. That collapse isn't dramatic, it's quiet. Gradual. Systemic. Their words start to contradict. Their followers distance themselves. Their energy falters. And the people they once manipulated begin to see them clearly. While many associate justice with legal systems, life often serves its own verdicts. The real trials aren't always televised. They're lived, day by day, moment by moment. Those who plotted harm against others begin to face consequences not through handcuffs, but through exposure. Their relationships suffer. Their internal peace deteriorates. Their ability to maintain influence declines. These are not punishments, they're recalibrations. And chosen individuals, they remain composed. Not because they're unbothered, but because they understand the rhythm of restoration. They know that what's built on silence and discipline eventually outlasts what was built on sabotage. In moments of conflict, people often look to speak louder, move faster, and dominate first. But for the chosen, stillness is the weapon. It unsettles enemies because it cannot be predicted. It disarms manipulation because it doesn't respond. And it turns every tactic of control into a boomerang. The chosen one's calm becomes a mirror, and those who once laughed in confidence begin to question themselves. Every lie, every plot, every betrayal is now standing alone in the light, without the distraction of your reaction to hide behind. Stillness gives you strategic advantage. It keeps you rooted in truth while those around you flail in illusion. There's a strong desire in human nature to confront those who've wronged us. To ask why. To demand answers. But chosen ones know better. Closure doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from clarity. You don't need their apology. You don't need to hear their explanation. The fact that their world is unraveling, slowly and silently, is enough. And your continued growth, your decision to move forward, is the only closure you need. What once looked like unfinished business is now resolved by outcomes. The truth that was buried has surfaced, and those who once moved confidently in lies are now scrambling to maintain footing. That is justice. Not every battle is fought in daylight. Many chosen individuals suffer silently, behind closed doors, in private spaces, away from public sympathy. But while your pain may have been hidden, their downfall won't be. Those who orchestrated harm behind the scenes often find themselves exposed without warning. Their audience shifts. Their alliances falter. Their names become associated with the very behavior they tried to blame others for. And you don't need to gloat. You don't need to speak. You simply stand as the reminder that private pain often births the loudest transformations. Spiritual immunity isn't about being untouchable, it's about being unmoved. It means that even when storms rage around you, your foundation remains intact. Those who once targeted you used energy, not logic. They hoped fear would shake your confidence. But it didn't. Because your alignment was deeper than surface-level confidence. You weren't protected by noise, you were protected by purpose. And now, every attempt to disrupt you has become a record of their own failure. Spiritual immunity confuses the enemy. They can't understand why their tactics aren't working. But the chosen one knows, when your source is internal, external chaos loses power. For those who have spent their lives manipulating systems and people, the most terrifying moment isn't confrontation, it's correction. The shift never comes with a warning. It's silent. Unexpected. Exact. One day, they're planning their next move. The next, they're watching it all fall apart. Their control mechanisms break down. Their allies grow silent. Their access closes. And there is no one left to shield them from what they caused. Meanwhile, the chosen one steps into elevation, not because they forced it, but because they were aligned for it. The fall is always fastest for those who rise on false ground. When you've been wronged, there's an urge to correct the narrative. To explain your side. to make them understand. But the universe doesn't need your help to balance the scales. It sees what was done in the dark. It remembers what was whispered. It accounts for energy, not words, and it moves accordingly. You don't need to fix the story. Let time expose it. Let energy do its work. While others are busy trying to control perception, the truth is rebuilding your path silently. And soon, it will speak louder than any accusation ever could. At the height of their influence, they appeared unstoppable. But what you couldn't see was how fragile it all really was. Power based on deception collapses under pressure. And when that pressure arrives, through exposure, consequence, or simple alignment, it reveals how hollow the foundation was all along. The chosen don't need to fight these figures. They simply outlast them. Because true power isn't based on fear. It's built on clarity. On the kind of stillness that doesn't seek attention, it demands respect. And when the foundation of the inauthentic crumbles, the chosen rise. Not because they chased power, but because they were already aligned with it. If you're still wondering how this ends, you don't need to. The story is already written. You are not in a contest for justice. You are the evidence that truth doesn't require applause. You've walked through betrayal, false narratives, and quiet opposition, and still, you are here. The very people who thought they could write you out of the narrative are now watching you redefine it. Their efforts have expired. Their control has fractured. Their relevance is declining. And you are not just standing, you're expanding. They thought they'd end your influence. Instead, they extended your reach. Chosen one, everything that was meant to stop you has become proof of your endurance. The silence they used against you has become your advantage. The lies they told have become your fuel. And the energy they wasted trying to dim your light only revealed how bright it really is. Let them talk. Let them twist. Let them believe they're in control. Because while they distract themselves with performance, you are aligning with purpose. And in this alignment, no weapon formed against you will succeed, not because it didn't hit, but because it no longer had anything to destroy. You've evolved beyond their reach. And that, more than anything, is the ending they never saw coming. So here we are. Not at the end, but at a beginning that was always waiting for you. The story you've lived wasn't shaped by chance. It was forged through resistance, through betrayal, through pressure only the chosen ones are ever required to endure. But now, as the dust settles and the masks fall, the truth stands firm. You were never the target. You were the test. And you passed it. Every lie they told, every room where your name was twisted, every whisper that tried to weaken your foundation, none of it achieved what they intended. In fact, all of it proved necessary. Not because you needed the suffering, but because the world needed to see what happens when someone unshakable refuses to disappear. They thought their silence would mute you. They believed their absence would isolate you. They assumed their judgment would bury you. But they underestimated something too many overlook: alignment. You didn't fight fire with fire. You let the fire refine you. You didn't chase justice. You became its evidence. You didn't collapse. You recalibrated. Quietly. Strategically. With a calm that dismantled every illusion around you. And now, you've stepped out of the storm not just standing, but elevated. That's why you were chosen. Not to match noise with noise, but to become the stillness that reveals what's real. The stillness that breaks false unity, that exposes artificial strength, and that reflects back every intention with surgical clarity. There will be more challenges. There will always be resistance when truth walks in. But the difference now is this: you're not wondering why it's happening. You know why. Because chosen ones don't exist to be accepted. They exist to disturb systems, to interrupt patterns, to walk into places where comfort ruled and introduce correction. You were sent to shift the atmosphere. Not with noise, but with presence. And that presence, your presence, can no longer be ignored. The ones who laughed at your silence are now watching it echo across rooms they can no longer enter. The ones who weaponized your name are now trying to distance themselves from the same lies they helped spread. The ones who once assumed they'd outlast you are now grappling with the slow collapse of the empire they built on fear. So what comes next? You keep going. You keep moving. Not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right. Write about your resilience. Write about your purpose. Write about the calling you felt long before anyone else could see it. Because chosen ones aren't validated by followers, applause, or public favor. They're confirmed by impact. And your impact? It's only just begun. There's a world out there still pretending, still performing, still clinging to titles and masks and illusions of strength. But your rise wasn't built on fiction. It was built on facts, on battles you didn't broadcast, on wounds you healed in silence, on strength you developed when no one was watching. So let them talk. Let them watch. Let them write whatever story helps them sleep at night. Because the truth, the real truth, is that they can't reverse what's already been put in motion. They can't silence a frequency that never needed their permission to speak. They can't erase a legacy that was written before they even began their game. And the more they try to deny what's coming, the more clearly they'll see it take form. Quietly. Naturally. Inevitably. The silence they feared wasn't emptiness, it was the countdown. Now that the shift has arrived, and your steps are no longer hesitant but intentional, the message is clear. You were never buried. You were planted. And now that you've broken the surface, nothing they do can undo your growth. So as this chapter closes, let this be your final reflection. The attacks were real. The pain was real. But none of it was wasted. Every moment, every scar, every shadow you walked through has been turned into material for your platform. They won't understand it. They're not supposed to. Because the rise of the chosen isn't a performance, it's a precedent. And you just said it. Like this video if it reminded you who you are. Subscribe if you're ready to stay aligned with this energy. And drop a comment below that says, I rise in silence. Because that's the kind of power no one sees coming, but everyone will remember. Your next level begins now. And nothing they planned can stop it. If this message resonated with your spirit, if you felt the truth echo through every line, then it wasn't just another video, it was alignment. You didn't land here by accident. You were drawn here because your journey matches this frequency. You've been tested. You've been overlooked. And yet, you're still standing. That alone is confirmation. Now it's your turn to take this message and walk in it. Like this video if you recognize the shift happening in your life. Your engagement helps us awaken more chosen ones who are still fighting in silence. Every like, every comment, every subscription adds to the ripple, one that can't be stopped. Subscribe to the channel to stay aligned with content made for the ones who don't fit in because they were never meant to. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more presence. And that's what we're here to cultivate. And drop a comment below with the words, I'm built for this. Not for performance. Not for applause. But for purpose. Remember, chosen ones don't need to chase anything. Your presence shifts atmospheres. Your silence carries weight. And your journey, no matter how overlooked, is preparing to echo across generations. Stay focused. Stay aligned. Stay ready. Because they thought you were done. But your rise has only just begun.